Hi guys, so today I will be sharing with you guys how to do a men's cut using all scissors. This is my brother-in-law. He is 12 years old and he has amazing hair, but he needed a haircut. The first thing I did before I cut his hair is I made sure that his hair was wet. Since his hair texture is super fine but he does have a lot of it, it's easier to just cut his hair when it's wet. Moving right along to the haircut, the first step that I do with his haircut is I remove all the extra length. So now I am just cutting up and around his ear, and this is helping me establish the length for his haircut, but also removing a lot of bulk and length that isn't needed. As far as length goes, I am pulling all of his hair straight down, and if I'm doing layering, I'm pulling it straight out from his head. Now, with going up and around his ear, that can be a difficult spot for any men's cut or any longer, shorter cut, if that makes sense. So I'm pulling the hair in different directions and I'm combing it a lot just to make sure that I don't miss any hairs and it all gets cut the same length. As I continue on with his haircut, I just keep using my guide. If you haven't watched any of my other videos about cutting hair, I'll link them down below. The guide is basically a reference point. It will show you how long or short you need to cut the hair because you need to match up the rest of the hair with the guide or blend from the guide. Now I'm wrapping all the way to the other side of his head and just doing the exact same thing that I did on one side to the other to make sure it's the same length. Now I'm moving from the back of his head forward just to make sure that everything is even. I'm showing you where my guide is, pulling it straight out and chip cutting into it instead of cutting just straight up and down, just because if I just went and cut straight across, it would be a mess because his hair is so fine. It would definitely leave a line. So chip cutting just helps remove bulk, adds a little bit of texture, and really helps take out the excess hair that isn't needed. Now I'm taking the sections on the top, pulling them straight up and chip cutting into them while following my guide. With the very front, I do pull it at a little bit of an angle just because I want a little bit of a different length there just to give it some definition and a lot of texture. If he did have his choice with his haircut though, he would have completely shaved the sides and left the top how it was, but it didn't work out like that. So I'm doing the same thing, pulling it up straight across, chip cutting into it, and just making sure that each section around his head is the same. Now I'm adding the finishing touches to his haircut. I am combing the hair around his ear one last final time. I'm combing it up just a little bit and chip cutting into it to help blend the line around his ear, blend in the layers just a little bit better, but also to remove some added bulk that isn't necessary. Now on to my favorite part of a haircut is thinning it out, adding a little bit of texture, and giving it a polished look. I'm using thinning shears. They look like scissors, but they have teeth, and they really help polish the look off. Now I'm pulling out sections and going towards the tips and just cutting a little bit, and that will help remove bulk. Now right here I'm showing you where there is a weight line. I'm going to show you how to soften that. So I'm going in with my comb and my thinning shears and moving the comb up along with the shears to really help graduate the weight line and to soften that out just a little bit. Now, I don't know if you have this problem, but he does. He has a cowlick in the very back that if I did thin it out a little too much or I cut it a little bit too short, it would stick out. So if you do have cowlicks, be mindful of them and work with them, not against them, because you will not win. So now I'm just going in throughout the front and the back and just removing all those little weight lines. The last and final thing that I like to do with a men's cut or a shorter haircut is I like to clean up the neckline. So with his neckline, we are squaring it off on the bottom and rounding the edges. So I'm combing everything straight down and cutting a straight line across the back of his neck. Now, just a little bit of a tip when you are cutting a men's neckline. Comb everything straight down so everything is uniform, but also just make sure that you aren't going above where their natural neckline is. You can lift up the hair and see where the natural neckline is. If you do go above that, it's okay, but sometimes it just doesn't look as natural. It looks more blocky. So just keep that in mind. Now I am going back in and I am just blending in his neckline so it doesn't look so blunt and harsh, but it looks more blended and natural. I'm taking sections straight up on my comb and chip cutting into them to soften that line or to soften the bulkiness of his hair. One last little tip when doing a men's neckline. Sometimes the hair on the bottom grows in different directions, so it looks like it can be different lengths, but it's not. So I like to comb straight down, put my finger on it, and then cut the bottom just to make sure that it is even. And there's the finished haircut. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If there are other hair videos that you guys would like to see or any video suggestions, please leave them down below in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback. Please do not forget to subscribe and we will see you next time. Bye guys!